If you'd like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. What's going on, Knuckleheads? Thank you so much for joining me on what we're officially going to call the Keep It Clean show, or just Keep It Clean with Fighters Rep. I'm the Fighters Rep. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz, to smashing the what looks to be the United Kingdom's pay-per-view record as far as fights go, with an incredible 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. You heard that right, Knuckleheads. It's 1.6 million buys, and that was estimated, I believe, a couple of days ago. I've seen other numbers such as 1.8 million, but the bottom line is Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz 2 was a good look for Eddie Hearn and for, I believe it's Sky Sports that does the pay-per-view out in the UK. A huge success for Anthony Joshua, for the sport of boxing, for Matchroom Boxing especially, and I'm sure this is going to be good for both Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua. Not to mention Saudi Arabia. My goodness, Saudi Arabia having its first big boxing event and doing 1.6 million buys on English pay-per-view is an absolute pounding of Saudi Arabia's virginity when it came to boxing. Just an absolute pounding. So you know, that is huge, and a number that is being compared, no doubt, and you know, you could expect it, to the buys that the Wilder versus Ortiz rematch did. Now, you can't really knock people for comparing that, right? Because you've got a champion in Deontay Wilder, and you've got a champion in Anthony Joshua, and you've got, you know, the contender in Ruiz and the contender in Ortiz. Now, Ruiz was the champion, so I guess that's sort of the difference here. Plus, he had, you know, the huge upset and the sort of Cinderella story, the Rocky story on his side as well. But the Wilder-Ortiz rematch, based on my research online, has been estimated to have done roughly between 225,000 and 275,000. The most I've seen, the absolute most I've seen, was 300,000, and something tells me that that may be a bit of a biased number. Again, the most I'm seeing typically is between 225,000 and 275,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, simple math would indicate that if that's the case, then Anthony Joshua did almost 8 times, specifically did more than 7 times the amount of pay-per-view buys that the Wilder versus Ortiz fight did. And that is just incredible. And I must say, that is an absolute testament to not only the British boxing public and the culture out there as far as how they feel about their fighters and how they feel about the sport, but it's a testament to Matchroom Boxing, the promotion of Anthony Joshua, his marketing team, his personality, everything he's accomplished in the sport. And, you know, you can fool casual boxing fans, but you can't fool hardcore boxing fans. Those are the ones that stick around. Those are the ones that linger. And it looks like Anthony Joshua has those fans in droves, along with the casual boxing fans. If he's doing those kinds of numbers, that is absolutely ridiculous. Big shout out to the guys in the chat. Pound for Pound Boxing 510. Jamaican Boxing, big shout out to you, brother. And Jamaican Boxing is saying that isn't pay-per-view in the UK like $20 per buy. It's definitely a bit cheaper. It looks like it was $24.95 in pounds. We can do a simple conversion here to find out, what that is, $24.95. Let's take a look here. So a simple conversion shows $33. So, at $33, yeah, it's still cheaper than, I believe, the ridiculous amount of money that they charged for the Wilder-Ortiz rematch. I think they were charging $70. But if you're talking about $70 versus $33, you're essentially seeing a difference of just under half. But you're getting over 7 times the amount of buys. That's just absolutely incredible. And even when we look at it in that context, the leverage is with Matchroom Boxing. The leverage is with Anthony Joshua, and he absolutely does not need at all to leave the UK or anywhere close to home ever if he's doing those kinds of numbers. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I'll give you guys a bit of a comparison that I found online. So this Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz fight is basically first place now as far as UK pay-per-view records. Excuse me. Second place, which this fight just beat, was Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko, which was at $1.5 million, the fight that happened in 2017. Third place, Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. So at this point, Anthony Joshua is the top 3 best ever pay-per-view seller in the history of boxing in the UK. Fourth place is Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton, which did 1.15 million buys in the UK. Just absolutely incredible, the fact that Anthony Joshua has been able to basically smash that Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton number on 3 occasions now, especially this time from Saudi Arabia last Saturday. Just really, really good numbers. And again, showing where the leverage lies in the sport, showing that he's the one with the power, showing that, hey, if you want to, discuss who the man at heavyweight is, if you want to discuss, if you want to talk about negotiations, if you want to negotiate, you got to come see Anthony Joshua. This is despite the fact that he lost the first fight against Andy Ruiz Jr. His career was on the ropes. The way the drama sort of manifested itself and built up for that rematch, my goodness, you could see it in these sales. And the way he won that bout, I guarantee you guys, is just going to absolutely skyrocket his popularity even more, the way he came back and redeemed himself. So, it's just absolutely incredible numbers again from Anthony Joshua. And, people can hate, people can say what they want. Look, I still like Wilder better. I like Wilder better because he's the American guy. I'm going to go for Wilder because, typically I do that. I want to root for the hometown guy, but it's hard to knock Anthony Joshua if you're an objective boxing fan, if you're a businessman, if you're just a person. Man, how do you knock a guy that's able to pull in 1.6 million pay-per-view buys? That's just absolutely insane. And the amount of money that Anthony Joshua made in this fight, I mean, we're talking about generational wealth. We're talking about big money that this guy made fighting out there in Saudi Arabia. So this guy's really doing his thing. The other topic I wanted to touch on was the really good news we have of Dillian Whyte being reinstated as the WBC mandatory challenger and having his suspension lifted after being redeemed, after being set free by the ridiculous charges that were posed against him. And, I won't call them too ridiculous because I guess when there's a positive test, even if it's a false positive or it's a contamination, the agency involved definitely has to go through the procedures, and I totally understand that. I mean, the procedures in this situation, it's understandable that that would need to be uniform throughout and across the board. And so for them to proceed with their standard operating procedure after finding that this guy was positive, or after discovering a positive test, it's nothing that I would criticize, but what I would criticize is the fact that they've had this information for quite a long time that Dillian Whyte tested negative 3 days before the positive test and then tested negative for a month subsequent to that. They had that information, and they used that information in order to allow him to fight Oscar Rivas. And they also used the information that based on the positive test, the amount of prohibited substance in that positive test would have had no effect on the fight anyway. So it just pains me a little bit that it took them that long to sort of get the ball rolling in order to get Dillian Whyte off the hook and exonerate him. So, that's the only big bother for me. Also, I felt like the WBC suspending him provisionally and basically stripping him of his interim title during that process was sort of a fair thing to do, but I love the fact that as soon as UCAD and whoever else it was, I believe it was just UCAD, which is the United Kingdom Anti-Doping, as soon as they announced that Dillian Whyte was a clean athlete, that the result of this was the result of contamination, and I'm referring to the positive result, that it was the result of contamination based on the evidence before them. I love the fact that the WBC right away went back into reinstating Dillian Whyte as the mandatory challenger for the winner of Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, and by making him once again their interim world heavyweight champion. I just think that's absolutely fantastic. Good on him, man. Good on Dillian Whyte. He stuck to it. It looks like he went through a lot. He's been talking about how much hell he went through basically during this process. And you can only imagine if you're doing something you love, it's the only thing you feel like you're passionate about and you're good at and that you want to do. And then you get this test that tells you you're cheating when you're not. I mean, that has to be one of the most frustrating things in the world. I know myself, when I'm ever accused of doing something that I haven't done, I always find that to be one of the most frustrating things to deal with. And so I could only imagine what Dillian Whyte was going through, trying to find motivation to train after he's worked so hard and gotten to where he's gotten. Really a throwback guy, down to fight everybody, has fought everybody, has probably one of the best resumes in the entire heavyweight division. Fought Derek Chisora twice, fought Anthony Joshua, beat Joseph Parker. I mean, even Mariusz Schwach, he's not a killer by any means, but he's been a contender for a very long time and is a big, strong, durable guy. And it's just, really impressive what Dillian Whyte has done in his career to this point. He's done it the hard way, and he reminds me very much of a guy who I used to really enjoy watching fight, and that was Glenn Johnson, I believe, who was a super middleweight. I think he fought Roy Jones. He fought Carl Froch when he was already a bit older. But that was another guy that really just earned his way into the position that, he's in. So actually, excuse me, guys, I've got a call right now from somebody I'm trying to get as a special guest. Hello. Good. How's it going, Gerald? Oh, it's all good, brother. Listen, I'm actually on the show right now. Would it be cool to give you a phone call and get you on the show right now? No, I don't. Yes, please. Okay. Got it. 3051. Okay, I'm going to give you a call right now. Thank you, Gerald. Appreciate you, man. All right, so guys, I've got a little bit of a surprise for you. I've been trying to speak to Gerald Gallo Negro Washington. He's somebody I've been wanting to get on the channel for a while, especially considering that he was training as a sparring partner with Andy Ruiz. So let's give El Gallo Negro a call right now and talk about this fight with him and see what he has to say about it. Please hold, knuckleheads.
Hello.
Gerald, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How's it going?
I'm doing well, ladies and gentlemen of Knucklehead Nation. It is Gerald El Gallo Negro Washington, one of the top contenders in boxing's heavyweight division for a while now, and a sparring partner for Andy Ruiz. Is that correct?
Yeah, I helped them out. I helped them during this training camp.
Very cool. Well, we really appreciate you joining us on the chat, Gallo Negro. I'm a big fan. I definitely went out there and interviewed you before your Wilder fight, after your Wilder fight, and it's really cool to have you on the channel. We've got some questions for you. I know you flew out to Saudi Arabia with Andy Ruiz. It looks like they called you in to spar with him. How long precisely was it that you were working with Andy Ruiz before the fight?
Maybe about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. So they called you in 3 weeks before the fight?
3-4 weeks, something like that.
Okay, very cool. And, have you worked with Andy Ruiz in the past?
No.
So, what were your thoughts when you worked with him? What did you think would transpire on Saturday night?
Man, I just got to see like the gifted boxer that he was. He's very slick. He's quick, fast. He has moves. He applies pressure. I've seen the guy do 12 rounds, 10 rounds, 10 rounds, 10 rounds. He was doing all the rounds and all the work. In the training camp. It was. I think we just got to give credit to Anthony Joshua. I think he did. He boxed well. He moved well, and then in the situations where he was up against the ropes and Andy was getting ready to go, Joshua would tie him up, and it would just negate everything that Andy was going to do. So he had a good game plan. He stayed disciplined. You could see at times where Anthony Joshua would want to fight, and then he'd say, "No, I'm sticking to this. This is working. I'm gonna do it like this." And he stuck to his guns and just kept moving and boxing.
Yeah. What would you have advised Andy to do if you were in his corner during the fight? Because it looked like he just wasn't having much success at all.
Yeah, they definitely worked on it. Him and Coach Manny, they worked on it during the training camp. Cutting off the ring and jabbing to the body and just chopping them down. But like I said, Anthony Joshua was able to negate that with the good footwork and the grab. He was punching and grabbing them, and he didn't let Andy really get off too much.
Yeah,
because that's where Andy Ruiz is going to get him. You know what I mean? If he would have stood and fight, try to fight with him, he would have. That's where Andy would have had his success.
Right. One thing I noticed was when they were on the inside and they did trade, it looked to be a very dangerous position for Joshua, and he almost looked fragile whenever he did get hit. Is that something that you noticed?
I don't want to say that he looked fragile. I just say that he knew where he wanted to be at. He didn't want to be there. He was like, let me just grab this dude because it was. Andy knows how to, like, in the clinch. He knows how to punch off the brakes. And he was like, man, let me get safe. That's what it looked like to me. He was just trying to get in a good position and just make sure he didn't get hit with anything that was going to hurt him, and then because that would have gave Andy opportunity.
Right. Well, so they knew they were going to be in there with a big, strong, athletic guy. And I'm sure that's why they called you into the camp, because you're a big, strong, athletic guy that's sort of in the same shape, I would say, and has the same athleticism as a guy like Anthony Joshua. If they knew that that's the kind of style that they were going to deal with, why do you think Andy Ruiz wasn't able to kind of cut off the ring and get to Anthony Joshua and be effective?
Yeah, like I said, the good footwork, and then Joshua had the strategy. He would punch him and tie him up, and he would not let Andy Ruiz get off. No. He wouldn't let him get off because he would stop it before it got going. He would nullify it by smothering him. It was a tactic that Klitschko used. He would just punch and grab, like the smaller guys that kept putting pressure. He'd just grab, punch, and lean on them, and just the ref will call break, and then he'll wear the guys out like that, and then just punch, and then he'll box him, and then until he got tired and the guy got close, and then he'd just grab him. That's why.
Well, for lack of a better term, I want to address the elephant in the room. And, to me, it seemed that Andy Ruiz at first was losing weight. And a lot of people were actually even concerned that he was losing too much weight. Then we get to the weigh-ins, Gerald, and he weighs in 15 pounds heavier. Now, at that point, I was confused. I was saying, did this guy put on muscle in order to be stronger? I mean, what happened here? But when he got into the ring, he actually looked more overweight and out of shape. I mean, is that what happened? Was this a purposeful weight gain? Was this accidental? What happened there?
I don't know. I don't know anything about his weight gain or weight loss or what his weight was. I was never there to see how his weight was fluctuating. All I can tell you is that he was working hard. He did all the rounds of sparring. He won 8 rounds, and the next week 10 rounds, and the next week 12 rounds. He got all the work in. When we got to Saudi Arabia, we continued to spar, do drills, and do his thing. And I don't know. I was just as surprised as everybody else when I heard that his weight was 283. I didn't know, but like I said, in the camp he was functioning well. And I don't know what he was doing outside. I would come in just to work with him, and then I would be off on my way.
Gotcha. And how was that work based on your experience with him? How was he looking? How did you feel about the fight?
Yeah, like I said, he was working. He's fast, slick. He's good in the exchange, and they were working on cutting off the ring. And but like I said, I just want to give credit to Anthony Joshua. It's hard to cut off the ring when the guy's moving around, punching you, and then when you go get ready to punch, he grabs you. Yeah. You know what I mean? That alone right there takes his offense away. You know what I mean? So that's hard to deal with. Klitschko did that for 10, 11 years, you know what I mean, and reigned as champion. So he just took a page out of that book and kept it simple, man. Stayed behind the jab and the front hand, and he went to work.
For sure. I really appreciate your insight on that, Gerald. Now let's talk about you a little bit. I mean, you're 20-3. You're a big, athletic, strong guy. The heavyweight division, my man, is super interesting. It is absolutely popping right now. How do you feel about the heavyweight division right now?
Oh man, I'm very excited. I was very grateful to go to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a beautiful country. It was first class all the way through. They took great care of us from the moment when we got there to when all the way to the airport, and until we checked in our bags. They said goodbye to us. They saw us off. They took great care of us. I encourage any fighter to, if they have an opportunity to go fight over there, to go do it, because it was like, it was the best. And they really went all out, you know, and putting on the venue from when the guys walked out to the ring walk, you know, walking down the tunnels with the music, and the crowd was all into it. It was really an amazing spectacle.
That's really cool that you got to go to Saudi Arabia for boxing. I mean, do you see them doing more events in the future there, Gerald?
Yeah, I hear they got three fights coming. They got one in Jeddah, and they got two more in the same place where we just were.
Gotcha. In Diriyah.
Yeah.
How was the food situation there, and also the drinks? I mean, I would imagine they don't serve beer at the fights.
In Riyadh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
and
okay.
what was that about the food?
I was curious about the food because I heard the food was good, but my understanding as well is, I mean, I'm not sure if they'd be allowed to serve beer at the fights. Like, were people able to drink, or how was the food?
No alcohol in the country. It's a dry country. There's no alcohol allowed there. When you get off the plane, when you're on the plane, you're getting ready to land, they say, do not try to bring any alcohol into the country. It is not allowed. Like, don't go over there trying to be slick and trying to do what you want to do, man. It's a very respectful country. It's like straight up and down, man. Don't be messing around. Just stay in your lane out there, man, and be respectful of the culture and everything and if you do that, man, it's a wonderful place to be.
And how was the food?
The food was amazing. The hotel was very lovely. In the morning, they had a great buffet breakfast where they make your eggs to order, and they just have dishes from all over, from India. They have your eggs set up. They have your French toast, waffle, your pancake station. They have all the fruits. They have everything that we could ever desire. They have all these fresh juices. It was just very, very good. They had a nice restaurant there where they would grill meats and vegetables and have nice salads, and it was really a great place to be at. You know what I mean? So we enjoyed every moment of it. They had a beautiful gym built for the fighters for us to train at. And it was just really, it was really good, and I really enjoyed the experience there. I'm a top heavyweight right now, so I continue on my training as well. You know, I go in by myself in the morning, and then I go train with those guys in the evening. But just to stay on my game and on point for myself. So I'm looking forward to fight here in the first quarter of the year. And I don't know who or when or what yet, but I just know that we're working our way back to another title shot, and just looking to capitalize, man. I gained so much in the past 2 months, just working with Derek Chisora and Brian Jennings out there in London, and I came back to work with Andy, man. And this was just strictly all, you know, I had to bite the bullet a little bit. I'm not a sparring partner per se. I'm a fighter, but I needed to get this around them with these guys and get that experience, because I started so late in the game, man, and I'm always learning. So I need to brush up on that, man. And I'm glad I got to work with the first class guys, man, and actually be in there with an active champion and just gain that experience.
For sure, and that's all really good news, man. You are coming off that win over Robert Helenius, who was like a perennial, contender himself. And yeah. I think that was a really big win for you, man, especially, after that loss to Adam Kownacki. I was a little bit worried. I hope Gerald continues. And,
I was a little down, but you know what? It was just I don't want to say it's a fluke. It was just, they had me trying to fight an inside fight, and that's like not ever been my style. And I felt like I was starting over in my boxing, you know what I mean? And it was just like a stupid strategy, and it was just like, and I wish I would have checked it from the start, but me thinking, not believing in myself and just, going with my, my lack of experience, like, you know what I mean? Saying just trusting the trainers and all, and all that stuff, man. It's just like trying to go with what they say versus what I know. that's what my thing was. So now I'm gonna just stick to my guns, and I'll fill in whatever experience that I think I need. I'm gonna make sure that I get it, man, and just work and just trust myself. You know what I mean? If I don't feel it, then I'm not gonna do it. And if I do feel it, then I'll go for it all the way.
Chisora, Jennings, and the Ruiz. I mean, these are some top-notch quality sparring partners you're working with, Gerald. What's the difference between the Gerald Washington we're going to see in your next fight and the one we saw last time?
Man, I'm just at a point now where I have the experience now. I'm putting it all together, and it's just like I'm not out there experimenting. You know what I mean? I'm not out there doing anything that I'm not used to doing. Everything that I'm doing is because it's rehearsed and I practice it, and that's what I plan to do. You know what I mean? So, I'm just very excited about this year to come, and I'm gonna get after it.
And where do you think the fight's gonna be?
Like I said, I don't know. I don't know the venue. I don't know the opponent. I don't know a date.
Did you get an in with Matchroom? Or, did you get a chance maybe to sit down with Eddie Hearn, maybe see if he's interested?
No, I'm a PBC fighter, man.
Oh, I see.
PBC, man, they're doing a great job with me, and I'm just looking forward, man, to be on their shows, man. Like I said, they threw an amazing a fight out there, though. I do want to say that, and the people of Saudi Arabia that put on the show, they did such a great job. And it was just, like I said, if fighters get an opportunity to go over there, I suggest that they go. It's an experience of a lifetime. There's so much history and beautiful things to see there, and it's changing for the better. And people should go experience it.
Lots of exciting heavyweights on the come up. It's a bit of a toss up right now, Gerald. We've got these three champions, but they've all shown vulnerabilities. Where do you?
There's only two champions. You got Deontay Wilder and you got Anthony Joshua now. They're the only belt holders in the game.
That's right. I was thinking Tyson Fury as well in the top three, but he doesn't have a title other than, I guess, they consider him Ring Magazine or something like that, but I know he doesn't have a title anymore.
No, he's not on Ring Magazine, nothing.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have anything anymore. I guess he was lineal or something, but he doesn't have anything anymore.
Yeah,
You're right.
I mean, he's still the man to beat the man, and people respect that. And while he's going to get another opportunity at Wilder, but he doesn't have any belts. They don't have to deal with him. But he is the man for the sport. He does a great job. He talks a good game, and he can fight. So that's what makes it good. But yeah, you got your champion Deontay Wilder's on top, I believe now. Then you got Anthony Joshua with the belt, and then it goes on from there down the pecking order. But we're looking forward to these big fights coming up. That everybody's path is going to cross at some point in time, and when it does, man, it's going to be great. So we just got to just prepare, get ready, try to get ourselves in position, and do the best that we can.
It's really exciting because all three of those top three guys have shown some vulnerabilities. I mean, do you feel like you can capitalize on that if you get another shot up there?
Yeah, man. I mean, you're always one punch away. You know what I mean? Luis Ortiz was landing the shots that could have knocked out Deontay Wilder. He was landing shots to the head, big shots, But Wilder was able to withstand it, to take it, and finish him. So you know what I mean? It's like. And then Tyson Fury was doing his thing too, and then Deontay Wilder finally caught up with him. Like now, I don't think that fight's gonna go like that anymore. I think Deontay Wilder, he understands where he needs to put his punches, and I think he's gonna get Tyson Fury out of it. And then yeah, man. And AJ is gonna keep, he's gonna do what he has to do with his mandatories, and then their paths will cross, man. And everybody else is just trying to line up and get in position. That's all it is. It's just a race to the top.
Very exciting time for heavyweights. I'm very happy for you, Gerald, that you're here at this time, and you may have the chance to capitalize on that, hopefully. Really appreciate your time, Gerald. Before I let you go, is there anyone you want to shout out or anywhere we can find you on social media for the people listening and watching?
Yeah, just find me on GW Gallo Negro. I'm still working on it, man. Champion on the rise, man. I'm working hard, putting in quality work, I'm just getting better day by day, man. I can't wait to get back in there.
And we can't wait. And we can't wait to watch you, Gallo Negro. Thank you so much for your time, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. You got to have a good night.
All right, man. You too. Bye. So there you have it, knuckleheads. We had the Black Rooster, El Gallo Negro, on the show, giving his insights. Looks like he doesn't really know too much about the weight gain with Andy Ruiz, considering he was called in just 3 weeks before the fight. But, he's saying he was getting the rounds in. He's saying he was doing his thing, and he's giving the credit to Anthony Joshua, which I think, we definitely cannot leave Anthony Joshua out of the equation. I mean, he came in as a different fighter. He was moving well, like Gerald Washington was saying. And just, another sort of big happening in the heavyweight division, right? Another title changing hands again in the heavyweight division. The division is in chaos. The only belt that's been stable for a while is Deontay Wilder's. And it's exciting times because it means any one of these contenders, whether it's Usyk, whether it's Gerald Washington, whether it's, whoever, has the chance to go up there and beat one of these top three guys in Fury or Wilder or Joshua, because these three guys have shown vulnerabilities. They have shown vulnerabilities, and they can be beaten. And I think the vulnerabilities, are pretty obvious. Anthony Joshua, I think, is very uncomfortable with somebody fighting him on the inside. I think Deontay Wilder is very, uncomfortable with technical boxers. And if he can't land that big shot, there's a chance he just gets wiped out on a judge's scorecard, assuming anybody can last that long. He's also been wobbled, as has Anthony Joshua been knocked down and wobbled, and as has Tyson Fury, who was dropped by Deontay Wilder and basically came back from the dead to finish that fight. He's also mentally very erratic. He was on that over 2.5-year hiatus, so we never really know where these guys are going to be, as far as a year or two from now. And, it's really exciting because it kind of leaves a lot of questions and allows us to sort of hopefully figure out the heavyweight division by having the best guys, by having the best guys fight the best guys. So, really exciting stuff. Jamaican Boxing in the chat, he says, did you know D-Bull can only be injected into your body? With that being said, how was it in Dillian's system? Well, Jamaican Boxing, here's the deal. I tried explaining this in the video that talked about Dillian Whyte's charges of doping being dropped. This is what happened. So Dillian Whyte, on the 27th of June of this year, he tested. And that test came back negative. 3 days later, he tested again. That test came back positive, but it looked like the amount of the substance was so low that they figured it's not going to affect his fight against Oscar Rivas. Now, after that positive test, he tested for a month afterwards. So he tested before, he was clean. 3 days later, that positive test came. And then for the month immediately subsequent to that, he was clean. So what they said in the statement was, based on scientific evidence and the facts provided by Dillian Whyte, and obviously based on those circumstances, that it was a contaminated test. So what could have easily happened was, because it's being tested at a laboratory with other potential chemicals, or maybe the residue from, those steroids or other substances were still on whatever the testing material was, perhaps that's what caused that particular test to be flagged. Essentially, there's no real possible way, is my understanding, that you can test negative and then 3 days later test positive, and then for a month after test negative. So based on that information, they determined, hey, there's no way that this guy actually took this substance. This test was contaminated. And that's the kind of thing that happens, right? I mean, false positives happen, and contaminated tests happen. And sometimes people have to retest because the test is contaminated. And it's really unfortunate that it got to where it got, to where, he had to be stripped of his title. And, he basically lost his mandatory spot with the WBC. But, I mean, it looks like at the end of the day, justice prevailed. And I think, when we look at that evidence objectively, I mean, where there's a test that's clean, and then the subsequent one that's dirty, and then you've got 30 tests afterwards for 30 days. Or I don't know if they tested them every single day, but you've got tests for 30 days afterwards that are completely clean. It definitely calls into question not the athlete, but the procedure. And I think it's totally fair, and I think it's really, straightforward of them to have said that, yeah, we believe that the test, based on the evidence that we have and the facts provided to us by Mr. Whyte, was a contaminated test. And now the sad thing is, everybody, I think, understands Dillian Whyte's personality unless they don't have a personality of their own. Dillian Whyte's the kind of guy that just wants to fight everybody. He seems like a very throwback, straightforward, no-nonsense, to the point, honorable kind of guy that just wants to fight everybody. And he's shown that. He fought Joseph Parker. He fought Oscar Rivas. He fought Derek Chisora twice. I mean, Dillian Whyte is the kind of guy that just wants to fight. He says it and he means it. And for a genuine guy like that to continue to be thrown under the bus by people that don't understand what happened, and by people that just dislike him or don't like the fact that he's calling out Deontay Wilder, I think is a real tragedy, and that's why we're calling this the Keep It Clean podcast, because it's about keeping the sport clean. It's about keeping it objective. It's about calling out corruption and calling out bias, and even though I like Dillian Whyte, he's one of my favorite heavyweights along with Deontay Wilder, I do think at the end of the day, even if I disliked him, I would still stand up for what's right, which is to say that based on the evidence, even me, I mean, I'm not involved in that field at all. I'm an attorney and I look at evidence in my own right and I make my own judgments in the law. But as far as the evidence that I've seen, even though it's more related to science and medical evidence, for somebody to take a test and it to be negative, and then to take another test and it to be positive, and then to take tests for the next 30 days and they're all negative, it just seems strange to me. And the only explanation that I could really swallow and believe is the explanation that the test was actually contaminated. That makes sense, because otherwise, I mean, if he was actually taking that substance, I feel like it would have shown up in the test 3 days before. And if he was even taking that substance to the extent where it was having any sort of effect, which he wasn't, based on the information they presented to us, they said the amount that was in the test was basically negligible to the point where it had no effect on his fight with Oscar Rivas. I don't think that's the result we would have had. Had he taken the substance in order to gain an advantage, I think we would have seen a continued positive hit, not just in that test, but in the subsequent tests. So, to me, I think the most important thing to do is to appreciate and stop tearing down a guy like Dillian Whyte, who's willing to step in there with everybody. It's not every fighter that's willing to step in there with just anyone. It's not, and we've seen over and over again that a lot of the best heavyweights, that a lot of the best boxers, period, are just not fighting each other. And that's why people get so frustrated with boxing. That's why UFC and MMA have grown so fast. And I think, it's important to stand up for what's right and look at the objective evidence. Now, Jamaican boxing is saying microdosing. Well, microdosing could be an explanation, but I mean, are you microdosing in order not to have an advantage? Would you microdose to an amount where you're not going to get an advantage. So, I mean, what's the point? Is it a placebo effect? I mean, what are you going for? The whole point, in my opinion, of cheating is to gain an advantage. And if they're saying that the amount found in that test was so minimal that, it couldn't have helped him, then they're probably right. They know what they're talking about, and their job is to just flag these positive tests and report it to the British Board of Boxing Control. I assume that's who's in charge, and get these guys suspended. And I think if they felt that there was something suspicious going on, they would have suspended him. But again, I mean, the likelihood is just so low, right? We had, again, a test that was clean, followed by a test that had a small trace of something in it, followed by 30 days of testing that showed absolutely nothing. On a guy who really has never, I mean, as far as we know, never had any positive tests, never shown any kind of inclination to cheat. I'm not saying we have to trust everybody 100%, but I mean, you got to take what you got to take the evidence that's in front of you and look at it objectively and reasonably. Jamaican Boxer says, I'm just curious, if UCAD said he's clean, then he is clean. Hopefully going forward, we get the biggest and best fights. Absolutely, and I really do hope we get the biggest and best fights, but as we've seen, that's not always the case. Another thing I wanted to point out for you guys, which I think is kind of ridiculous, is I was actually looking up these issues online because obviously I get my information from the internets. And so while I was on the World Wide Net Web, I came across the Dillian Whyte news, and I came across an article that said, and this is also the reason why people's reputations get ruined. It's because information is not communicated properly. So the article says essentially that UCAD withdrew its charges against Dillian Whyte because the levels of the banned steroid were very low. But in fact, that's not the reason that they withdrew the charges. That's just one of many reasons, right? You can't make a statement like that. What happened in actual real fucking life is they looked at the totality of the circumstances and they made the determination that this guy didn't cheat. They didn't just look at the fact that there were very low levels of this steroid in his body. Again, they looked at the fact that 3 days earlier, he tested clean at a VADA or WADA, whatever it is, accredited clinic. And that subsequent to the test where he was positive, they tested him for 30 days all the way up to his fight against Oscar Rivas, because it was literally, I believe, exactly a month between the positive tests and when he fought Oscar Rivas. And they tested him for those 30 days or throughout those 30 days. And all those tests, he came back clean. So, you have to look at it objectively. Not only was the test before the positive test clean, the 30 days subsequent to the positive test was clean, and the amount was so low that they're saying it wouldn't have affected his performance. So, in a situation like that, I mean, even if the guy is cheating, which is really unfortunate, it didn't affect his fight. It didn't affect the performance. But just based on the information that I have, I mean, 30 days of testing, the guy's availing himself to these people and making himself available. Obviously, if he's, if they're testing him for 30 days, he's never really been dirty before. He's always down to fight whoever. He's, just a fair guy he's just a squirrel trying to get a nut out of this life. You know what I mean? And I just think it's very unfortunate that it got to that point to where he was stripped. But luckily, at the end of the day, justice has prevailed. Dillian Whyte has been reinstated as the number one, mandatory for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, whoever wins that fight. I mean, he's the number one mandatory for Deontay Wilder now, but obviously if Deontay loses that fight, then he's going to fight Tyson Fury. If Fury wins that fight, that is a massive fight for British boxing. Regardless, I think Dillian Whyte has got a real shot at beating either one of these guys. A lot of people will say Tyson Fury is too technical for Whyte. Deontay Wilder hits too hard. But, I think Dillian Whyte will come forward on Deontay Wilder and make it a very rough fight for him and can beat him. And he does sort of have a one-hitter quitter in that left hand, and we've seen it over and over again. I'm not going to say it's as hard as Deontay Wilder's right hand, because it's not. But he does have that one-hitter quitter magic in that left hand, and if he lands that thing on Deontay Wilder, that could be good night for Deontay Wilder. And the same goes for Tyson Fury. Now, also, people will say Tyson Fury is too technical for a guy like Dillian Whyte. But as we saw with Otto Wallin, if you pressure Tyson Fury and fight him close and technical, the way Wallin did, you give him a hell of a fucking fight. And I think that's the way Dillian Whyte fights. He comes forward. It's sort of tactical, smart pressure. And he's a guy that can give, I think, Tyson Fury real fits. And he's not the kind of guy to back down. You're going to have to knock Dillian Whyte the fuck out to beat him. And that's definitely something, again, that Deontay Wilder can do. But Deontay Wilder's going to have to go through fire, hellfire, and brimstone, I think, when he fights a guy like Dillian Whyte. And so is Tyson Fury. Dillian Whyte is not going anywhere. So, and then, we've got Jamaican Boxing in the chat saying, come forward, yes, but hope he doesn't gas after round 7 in all his fights. But, Dillian Whyte, has gone 12 rounds or almost 12 rounds with a lot of really tough guys and didn't really gas. He looked tired in this last fight against Mariusz Wach, but again, he came in on 2 weeks' notice after going through some kind of depression because of this horrible UCAD situation he was in. So you got to give the guy credit. He went 12 rounds with Joseph Parker, and even though he got rocked near the end of it, he still beat a guy in Parker who's got way more experience than him overall in boxing. And that was a guy that was holding the title before Anthony Joshua took it from him. Dillian Whyte also, went to war with Derek Chisora, and in their second fight, showed that he carries power to the very end of the fight. I think he ended that fight in the 11th round with that one-hitter quitter left hand he's got. So, Dillian Whyte, I think, is the dark horse of the heavyweight division. I think people see that he's problematic and would rather not fight him. And by people, I mean the top guys. Guys like, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and Deontay Wilder. I think Anthony Joshua would also have a hell of a time with this present-day Dillian Whyte. Now, I'm not talking about the one that came in against Wach, because remember, that was a Dillian Whyte on 2 weeks' notice. But I'm talking about a Dillian Whyte that's motivated, like the one that came in against Oscar Rivas, or better, because this guy's improved dramatically since the last fight. The last time he fought Anthony Joshua. And Anthony Joshua has shown that he gets very uncomfortable with people that are stalking him. That's the way Andy Ruiz was able to beat him on the inside in Andy Ruiz's wheelhouse. And I think if Dillian Whyte comes after Anthony Joshua, that could be a really rough night for Anthony Joshua. I also think that, Anthony Joshua showed a little bit of fragility in that fight against Andy Ruiz. I felt like every time Ruiz got close, he looked like he was almost panicking to get the hell out of there. So, again, Dillian Whyte, I've made my case for the guy. I think the guy deserves a chance at a title shot, absolutely. I think he's probably number 4 or 5 in the heavyweight division right now. It's basically, Wilder, Fury, Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, who I still think is one of the best heavyweights. He just needs to, get his act together and get in shape. And Dillian Whyte. those are the top 5 guys. Maybe Usyk can make some noise. I feel like Filip Hrgović has got potential, but he's still got to work on some things. Definitely his defense is a little bit leaky, but he looks like he's got a strong punch. And the heavyweight division is on and popping, man. You've got Kownacki. You've got guys like Big Baby Miller, if he can get his act together. You've got Gerald Washington. You've got a bunch of people that can still be competitive. I mean, hell, even in that fight where Deontay Wilder absolutely, annihilated, pulled a Death Star laser on Dominic Breazeale, Dominic Breazeale still kind of rocked him in that fight, so all these guys are vulnerable. I mean, let's not forget, Wilder even got rocked by Eric Molina, a few years back. So, I mean, this is a wide open division that anybody can win. And, I feel like the person who's taken the most initiative to sort of take it over has been Anthony Joshua. But, after that, as far as initiative of taking this shit over, I got to give it to Dillian Whyte, man. He's fighting everybody. And then maybe Deontay Wilder. But I just feel like he needs to leave his bubble a little bit. That promotional bubble. And then, Fury and Ruiz. So that's the way I feel about it. We've got Lost Survivor in the chat. Thank you so much for joining, brother. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, the bell notification icon. Feel free to donate to the channel. Get your t-shirts in the links below for Fighters Rep. It's greatly appreciated. Anything you guys purchase or donate to this channel is reinvested right back into the channel and into Fighters Rep Promotions. We're the only kickboxing promotion in the entire state of California. And definitely the only pro kickboxing promotion. And as you can see on the top right of your screen, Fighters Rep 9 is coming February 28th. We've got a fantastic card lining up. It should be on Fight TV. I think it'll only be like $10 if we're able to get it on Fight TV. If we're able to get on Fight TV, which it looks like that's what's going to happen. And we got some of the best young talent, striking talent in the world. So you definitely want to check that out. Lost Survivor says, I don't mind him fighting Wilder, but Wilder better order daily drug testing. So it looks like Lost Survivor is not feeling the evidence for Dillian Whyte's exoneration. He says Wilder would probably do the same as first Stavern fight, keep him at bay with the jab. Pound for Pound Boxing 510 says Whyte needs to get in great shape. I agree with that. And I think when he fought Rivas, he was in pretty great shape, but he did look like shit against Mariusz Schwach. Lost Survivor says Wilder and Stavern are literally the same build and come forward fighters. Well, I think you mean Dillian Whyte and Stavern, but I disagree. Stavern I don't think is as long as Dillian Whyte, and I also don't think Stavern is as tough as Dillian Whyte. I mean, he was during that first Wilder fight, but I felt like, his chin sort of gave out, and he didn't continue to improve and stay at the top, and he got wrecked in that second fight. Dillian Whyte's not that guy. Dillian Whyte is a guy who got wrecked by Anthony Joshua, although he put up a fight and wobbled Joshua, and he's a guy who steadily improved since then. He's the opposite of the guy that gets knocked out and is never the same. He's the guy that got knocked out and got better. And I've really rarely seen that. And I think that goes to Dillian Whyte's character, man. People can say what they want about the guy, but he's funny, he's genuine, and he can fight. And he's down to fight anybody. So that's why I respect the guy. He's a throwback. Ondiek, thank you, man, for being here. He says, Dillian is very aggressive. Jab will not keep him at bay. I agree with that. Ondiek says exactly why they tried to get rid of him with all those allegations. He's the new boogeyman of the heavyweight division. And, I would go as far as to say he is a boogeyman. They're scared to fight a guy like that who's down to fight anybody. I mean, how do you intimidate a guy who went in there against Anthony Joshua, wobbled him, and then got knocked out, got up from it, became better, and is still calling you out all the time? I mean, he's not afraid of anybody. This guy wants Joshua bad. He wants Fury bad. He wants Wilder bad. He's been angling for that Wilder fight for years now. So, that's a guy that's very tough. You're going to have to knock him out. He's not intimidated, and he's physically sturdy enough to make it a difficult fight, and he's hard-headed enough to make it a difficult fight for anybody. And I got much respect for him, and he's got enough skills to do well in the heavyweight division. Jamaican Boxing says WBC should cancel the Fury fight and give Whyte his rightful shot next April at the title. It's crazy, Jamaican Boxing. That just made me think. It is absolutely crazy that this allegation sort of happened at a time where he could have maybe gotten that shot instead of Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury got the shot, and now he's been exonerated. So it's crazy. It's almost like, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would say that this whole thing was sort of planned in order to get Dillian Whyte out of the way so the Fury-Wilder 2 fight could happen. But, I'm not that much of a conspiracy theorist. Ondiak says, I agree, he has proven himself over and over again. Really, I don't know what else is left for the guy to do. He's beaten basically all the heavyweights that he needs to beat. And I think he's earned the right to fight for the winner of Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. However, I do think that Dillian Whyte desperately needs to take a tune-up fight before that happens. Because if he goes in the same shape that he fought Mariusz Schwach, if he goes in that shape against Wilder or Fury, he's going to get knocked out or schooled. So he definitely needs to get in good shape, get in the best shape of his life, and go in there and put on a show. And I think he can definitely make it happen. Lost Survivor says, if you look at the Parker and Rivas fight, good shape and still Whyte gassed out and got knocked down both times. Imagine Wilder landing a right on him. Well, imagine Wilder landing a right on him. Yes, I'm sure he could get knocked out. But, imagine Dillian Whyte in Wilder's face landing that left on him. Look, Tyson Fury buckled Wilder a couple times. Again, Eric Molina buzzed him. Luis Ortiz buzzed him. A lot of people have buzzed Deontay Wilder and had him hurt. And he's got a hell of a chin and a hell of a heart, does Deontay Wilder. But he can be hurt. And if Dillian Whyte lands that left hand, the way he landed it on Chisora, the way he landed it on Lucas Brown, he can really hurt somebody with that left hand. Let's not forget, this is heavyweight boxing, you guys. Any of these guys with one punch, like Gerald Washington was saying in the interview earlier, can end the fight. So, that's something you have to keep in mind. And I agree again, that right hand of Wilder, that's the most devastating punch in boxing history, perhaps. But this is heavyweight boxing. That devastating punch landed on Tyson Fury, and he got back up from it. So that's not to say that the elite of the division can't take that punch. And maybe, just maybe, Dillian Whyte is able to take that punch. Maybe he's able to take it. Maybe he's able to avoid it. Maybe he's able to smother it. And maybe he just does what he can do and gets the win. Dillian Whyte has rarely been the kind of guy to get taken out with one punch. Yes, Anthony Joshua landed a monster punch on him and took him out, but he was hurt before that. You got to really finish Dillian Whyte. And that's a terrifying prospect if you're going in there against a guy knowing you have to finish him. There's no way around it. He's not going to give up. So just something to think about. At the end of the day, even if you disagree with Dillian Whyte being able to potentially take that punch, you have to agree with the fact that he deserves to be in there. If Luis Ortiz can get that shot twice, why can't Dillian Whyte? Who has Luis Ortiz fought other than Deontay Wilder that's better than Dillian Whyte? Name me 4 fighters that Luis Ortiz has fought. You can't do it. And that was Dillian Whyte's argument when he was interviewed. Name me 4 fighters that Luis Ortiz has fought. You can't really name any good fighters that Luis Ortiz has fought other than Deontay Wilder. Jamaican Boxing says the Wilder Ortiz 2 fight was supposed to be Wilder versus Whyte if the bullshit didn't happen. I don't think he needs a tune-up. He just needs to lose 20 more pounds. You know, I do think, let me be honest with you, I do think it's in his best interest to have a fight before he goes in there against Wilder versus Fury winner, because it'll keep him sharp and it'll keep him in shape. That's just my opinion, especially with the shit he just went through. It definitely had an effect on him mentally and physically. On DX says Dillian boxer IQ has gone up over the years. He is tough as nails. He can take punishment. I agree, man. The guy's a fucking rhinoceros, man. The guy's a tough fucking guy. But anyway, knuckleheads, I really appreciate you joining me on another episode of Keep It Clean with the Fighters Rep. We've been on for over an hour, so I got to get this thing wrapped up at this point. But I really appreciate you guys. Be sure to tune in like we always do, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. And immediately after the big fights on Saturdays, which is typically when they happen, or whenever they happen, we go live. So be sure to join us. Thank you for your time. And until Friday, knuckleheads. Is today Wednesday? Yeah, I'm losing it. Until Friday, keep it clean, you guys. I'm out.